Welcome to the Pursuing Points podcast, where it's all about the pursuit of credit card points and miles today so that you can travel the world free of charge tomorrow. And now, your host, Peter Foti.
Hello, everyone, listeners of the Pursuing Points podcast. Welcome back. I know it's our first podcast since October, and welcome to 2018. So happy New Year, happy holidays. I hope everyone had a really good time. I realize this podcast should be coming out it looks like it's going to come out on Tuesday, January 2nd, so everyone's going back to work. But hopefully everybody enjoyed the holidays. I know that I did, although I was a little bit busy for reasons I'll discuss in a minute. But I'm glad to have you all back. I'm your host, as always, Peter Foti with the Pursuing Points podcast. Last time I was doing a podcast was back in October. Like I mentioned, we talked about protecting your online and offline identity. Hopefully people got some value out of that. They heard some things that they didn't know of, and so they were able to take some steps to protect themselves. I mean, that's always the goal. And yes, I mean, today's show was prompted by a recent redemption. This is an SPG Moments experience redemption. I'm going to talk about that sort of at length. I'm also going to talk about some plans that I have for 2018 with regards to credit cards, as well as like the points and miles that are associated with them. And as sort of a preface to that, I want to lead off by just saying that at the end of 2017, I ended up getting a new job, which led me to a new city. So for listeners of the podcast, you may remember that for the better part of the last 2 years, I was in Durham, North Carolina. My main airport was RDU, Raleigh-Durham International, and that was great. I had a very good job working on some software projects as a software developer for Ticketmaster, and that role sort of came to an end, and it was time for me to find something new, and I'm happy to report that I did. So I've actually moved to New York City, the Big Apple, as they call it. That is, I don't know why they call it that. I'm sure somebody in the comments will tell me. But yeah, so I actually moved here last week. Have been getting settled thanks to a lot of help from family for getting me unpacked and whatnot. And I'm starting a new job here in New York next Monday. So that sort of changes a lot of things for me in terms of my travel. Obviously, my home airport is now very different. My strategies will change. And you know what? I was going to talk about this at the end, but I'm just going to lead in with this, and then we'll get to the SPG Moments redemption. So basically, for the better part of the last 2 years, basically ever since I've been in Durham, ever since I was in Durham, I made the decision that I wanted to accrue status for the first time ever, and I decided I was going to do that on Delta. So especially at the beginning of this podcast, I did a lot of episodes talking about Delta Elite status, medallion, and I talked about the various credit cards that you can use to acquire things like MQMs, and which are medallion qualifying miles, and then the different tiers of status they have: silver, gold, platinum, and diamond. And in my first year, sort of going all out, I was fortunate enough to have been traveling a lot for business, also doing a lot of personal travel, and in my first year I got Platinum Delta status. As mentioned sort of previously, I also use the Delta Platinum Amex. It has a $195 annual fee, but if you spend $50,000 in a year, you get 20,000 MQMs, which 25,000 gets you silver status. So sort of, I mean, with like a couple flights and then meeting that requirement, you get the lowest level of status. And like I said, in the first year I hit platinum. I had a bunch of flights from Raleigh-Durham to Los Angeles for work, and I was doing a lot of personal travel. The second year, which would have been 2017, I reached gold, and I didn't quite knock it out of the water. It was kind of just barely. So I'm going into 2018 with gold status on Delta, which I'm excited about. But the thing for me is really, I value first class travel pretty much more than anything else when it comes to elite status. That's why I specifically wanted to try and accrue elite status on an airline. And with Gold, I will get some upgrades depending on the destination and depending on the day of the week and also just the time of the day, right? I mean, as something we sort of talked about in the past is that, like, if you're traveling on a Saturday, sort of morning, afternoon, etc., you're going to get less business travelers, and less business travelers just means that there's more upgrades to go around, right? If you're flying on a Monday morning and you're not a Diamond Medallion, you're probably not going to get upgraded. So, and obviously, the lesser status you have, the lower your odds are of being upgraded. So for me now, my new sort of home airports are either LaGuardia, LGA, or JFK. Both of those, I suspect, have a lot of business travelers, a lot of Delta flyers. You know, I would say it's probably not as many as like Atlanta, which is the Delta hub, but certainly New York is obvious. I mean, it's just one of the busiest places in the world, so it stands to reason that there's a lot of elite flyers here, and getting upgrades is going to be tough. But that doesn't matter as much because I don't suspect I will be doing as much traveling in 2018, and the traveling that I will do will just be for bigger trips. And I also plan on not flying on Delta all the time. So for instance, JetBlue Mint is a product that I've long wanted to try. I've never had the opportunity to do so because I've never been in New York and had to fly somewhere. But of course, now that I live here, it's much easier to take advantage of something like JetBlue Mint, which I can fly from here to LAX or here to San Francisco, Aruba, the Caribbean. And I believe they're talking about adding routes to places like Las Vegas, which is one of my favorite vacation spots. So, you know, for me, I think moving forward, at least in the short term, I'm more interested in buying sort of that premium level seat because I know I'm going to be doing it much less often, right? To get even gold status, you have to fly a fair amount. I'm sort of left in awe of the people who routinely get diamond and they don't travel for work all the time. Because even when I was hitting platinum, I felt like I was in an airport almost every week. So you have to fly an awful lot to get some of those top tier statuses, and it's just not going to happen for me this year. So my goal is, instead of trying to get status and spend a lot of money on a Delta credit card, I want to switch up my spending. I want to buy fewer tickets overall, but the ones that I do buy, I want to be of a higher quality. So I want to take advantage of premium seating options that I otherwise wouldn't be able to, and sort of go from there. So what that means, and so JetBlue Mint obviously is just like one example. I have a ton of miles on Delta, which I suspect I'll be using. I have a lot of miles on a few other accounts. So we'll see what the redemptions look like. I mean, it's January 1st. I haven't planned out the whole year, to be honest. I'm just sort of spitballing with regards to my plans. And I would say the big one is just that I'm not planning on having Delta status in 2019. I'll make use of whatever I have for the rest of this year. But the focus in 2018 is going to be on fewer trips, but the ones I do take will be on more expensive tickets. The other thing, too, is that in New York City, we've got, Penn Station, and the options for taking trains places are sort of incredible. So I actually took a train a couple weeks ago from New York City to Philadelphia. I bought a business class ticket on Amtrak. It was $88 for a one-way trip, and I have to say that I really enjoyed it. The process of train travel, and this is something I plan on going into much more depth in a future episode once I've had a little bit more experience. That was probably my first train ride in many years, probably since I was a teenager maybe, or even littler than that. But basically, you show up at Penn Station, you take the subway there, you never have to come above ground once you're down there. There's no security. You just go to the Amtrak waiting lounge. There's a board that tells you what track your train will be on. And once you see the track, you just head over. They scan in your ticket. And obviously seats are just first come, first serve. The business class cabin is the last car. I believe on the train to Philly, we stopped once in Trenton, New Jersey, once in Newark, and maybe once more, but it was quick. It was a little over an hour, perhaps, from New York to Philly on the Amtrak. And again, $88 in business class. I don't necessarily know if I got the full value out of that ticket. I may next time just buy a regular ticket and see sort of what that gets me. But for some of the places I'll be traveling in 2018, places like Philadelphia or Boston, I may opt for a business class train ticket as opposed to getting myself to the airport, going through security, getting on the plane, getting off the plane, and paying more for it. On those trains, at least in my experience on that given day, wasn't crowded at all. I had a whole row to myself, and I find it much easier to get work done. Of course, there's no takeoff and landing, there's no seatbelt. You just, you get on, they scan your ticket, and everything is good. So, when I signed up for Amtrak member rewards, I got 500 points because I traveled in the first 90 days. So if you haven't done that already, go ahead and sign up for that. And then if you make a trip on Amtrak within, I think it's the first 90 days, it might be 60, but you'll get 500 bonus points for that, which is really cool. So I'm also looking into the Amtrak credit card, looking for ways I can get more points on there. And I'm basically just looking at alternative travel, I guess sort of alternative means of travel. I enjoy the train. I want to check out some new carriers. I mentioned JetBlue Mint. I want to check out some other ones. And I guess lastly, before we get into my SPG Moments story, is that, last year I spent pretty much all my money on the Delta Platinum Amex because I wanted those bonus MQMs. Now that I don't really care about that as much or at all, I don't expect to do that this year. And I haven't exactly figured out what cards I'm going to use, but I have an idea. So I want to refocus some of my points earning on Starwood points. They've always sort of been the most valuable. And after the experience I had with their Moments program, I want to do that again and again and again. And as of right now, I have almost no points left. So I want to start earning some more Starwood points directly. And then I'd also like to try and earn some through, say, Amex membership rewards and then transfer them over, even though the transfer rate is not good. It's 3-to-1. So 1,000 membership rewards points get you 333 Starwood points, basically. But once I make a decision, as always, I'll sign up for the card as part of a podcast episode. We'll go over the application. We'll see if we get approved or denied. And then I'll talk more about why I made the decision. And, and then we'll go from there. So, deep breath. Basically, all that being said, I would love to hear from you all what your plans are for 2018 with regards to credit cards and points and miles. And of course, if you have any questions for me or if you just want to chat, I love receiving your emails. And I also have, just as the last thing before we get into the SPG Moments discussion, I'm really going to start to focus in 2018 on this Pursuing Points podcast and on the Pursuing Points brand, just sort of in general. I have a lot of ideas in my head for things that I'd like to do. And listen, my goal is not to try to do everything that, View from the Wing and the Points Guy and these other websites do. I'm not going to be, tweeting the same thing that they tweet because just there's some new offer or there's a new credit card. I want to do a little more deeper dive stuff. I want to interact with people on an individual, one-on-one basis, whether that's through doing consulting over Skype or just answering your emails or, gathering a repository of your questions and my answers. I just want to be a little bit more deliberate. I have a lot of ideas. I hope that you'll all sort of join me on the journey. And, obviously I really appreciate your support and the fact that people listen. We get positive reviews on iTunes, which is awesome. So, yeah, if you have any questions or you feel like sharing what your plans are for 2018, I'd love to hear about it. Send me an email. You can use the contact form on pursuingpoints.com, or you can just email Peter@pursuingpoints.com, and that'll work too. So with that, for the final 15 minutes or so, and it might go over because this is kind of a cool story, I want to talk about SPG Moments. So for those of you who don't know, basically Starwood Hotels, SPG, they have an assortment of credit cards, and they offer this thing called SPG Moments. And what these are, how best to describe this? Basically, what moments are redemptions that are not necessarily travel. So you can redeem for a moment at, say, a sporting event. They have got culinary moments, they've got lifestyle moments, entertainment moments. Basically, they call them moments, but it's like, for example, you might get a luxury suite at an event. Let's see, one of the culinary moments might be, it says, cook modern soul food with Tanya Holland of Brown Sugar Kitchen, plus stay at the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay, right? So it's basically access to things that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily be able to get access to, or if you would, they'd probably be pretty expensive. And you can use your Starwood points to either buy these moments outright, or you can bid on them. So basically they have, they're like auctions where you can bid using your star points for these redemptions. And I just gave a few examples, but they've got tickets to games, right? The 2018 NCAA football championship game, which is obviously a massive event, although that's the FCS one, so it's a little bit less so. But still, those tickets would probably be very expensive. What else? Another example would be, they say, attend an exquisite midnight supper celebration with Wan Bao Bao at the St. Regis Shanghai in China. So right now that's going for 39,000 points, and that auction ends tomorrow. So those are just a few examples of things that you could get. And basically that's where my story begins, is that I got an email from Award Wallet, which I've talked about before on the show. If you're not using it, you should. It's free to sign up. I do have like a referral code, but I'm not sure that either of us get anything if you use it. But if you want to, I'll include it in the show notes. And the quick one-liner on Award Wallet is that you can track all of your different points and miles balances. And they also maintain things like expiration dates if you have a premium account. And it's basically just a points and miles nerd's best friend. So Award Wallet sent me an email saying that my 71,000 Starwood points were set to expire in February 2018. Now, these points I've had for quite some time. So the SPG Personal Amex was one of the first, if not the first, premium card that I ever had. I don't remember if it was the first or not, but I had it back when it was the gray and red. Now it's like purple. I had it when it was the gray and red card. And at the time, I would say this is 3, 4, maybe even 5 years ago. I signed up. I'm going to say the sign-up bonus was probably around 30,000 points. So I got those, and then I used it for a couple years thereafter until I had the 70,000 points. Ultimately, I ended up canceling the card maybe a year or two ago. Basically, at that time, I was moving more to the Delta stuff. I didn't necessarily want or need the card in my wallet because I wasn't going to use it. I had the Freedom Unlimited. I had the Delta Platinum Amex. It just didn't really have a place at the time, so I canceled it. Now, when you don't have the card, your points, they're at risk of expiring. I believe they expire, it's either 18 or 24 months of no activity. And of course, because I hadn't stayed at an SPG resort, nor had I earned or spent any points, I had no activity. So I got the email from Award Wallet letting me know. Now, I got the same email last year, and I basically just decided to transfer some points from Marriott. So you can transfer points amongst accounts, and that sort of counts as activity, so you can prolong the life of your points. So I had planned, I was going to do that again this time, but then I figured, okay, let me just go on the website and see if there's anything I can do with these points, because frankly, and I've talked about this before, right? You don't just want to accrue points for the sake of accruing points. generally speaking, you want to accrue them with some idea of how you're going to use them. And I say that because, basically this exact situation, right? It's like these points are sitting there, and if they expire, that's the worst case scenario. And if you just never use them, you would have been better off putting those expenditures on a card that earn points that you will use, right? Like I use my Ultimate Rewards points from Chase all the time because I love their travel portal and the 1.5x bonus I get from the reserve card. So if I was never going to use these Starwood points, I may as well, I'd be kicking myself for not having used a Chase card at the time because I would have gotten more points. So all that being said, I went on the SPG Moments website and I saw on there that they had a redemption option for a luxury suite at Madison Square Garden for, I believe it was December 27th. So what was interesting is that it didn't say what was going on that night. It just said that the box is available and you can basically you can get 2 tickets. So the redemption was you get 2 tickets, 55,000 points, you get access to the luxury suite, and then you get event level seating. So I went on the MSG website to look up what the performance was, and it turns out it was the band Phish. Now, I don't consider myself a Phish head. This would have been my first concert. I listened to them, but I have a friend who's really into them, and I just got to thinking that, these points have been sitting here for years. I have no plans on using them, so why not use them for this? So I asked him if he'd be interested. He said, of course. So I said, okay. I bought... I made a single redemption, 55,000 points. I got 2 tickets in the luxury suite at MSG for Phish. Awesome. So a day or two goes by, and I get an email from Starwood asking me if I'd be willing to move my date from, I believe it was a Thursday to a Friday. So just move it back one day. And they didn't necessarily give a reason, but my assumption here is that, whether they sell 2 tickets or 10 tickets, once they sell those first 2 tickets, now the suite is open for business. So it has to be stocked with alcohol, it has to be stocked with hot food, it has to be manned by multiple attendants, and of course that costs people money. So what I'm thinking is that at the time I had made my redemption, they hadn't sold any other packages, and they were hoping I would move to a different day, to a day where they had sold some packages and maybe they'd save some money. I decided I didn't want to do that. The way that this all worked out with my buddy, he's coming in from out of town, so we didn't want to have to switch dates. So I told Starwood as much, and I was super impressed with the customer support person, or I guess the in her email signature, it says she's the SPG Moments liaison. This is Barbara N. I won't say her last name. I don't know if I should. But if you have the chance of dealing with Barbara from SPG, very, very nice, completely understanding. She figured, it was a long shot, but the folks at MSG told her to ask, so she did her job. And so when in telling her no, what I basically said was, if you guys can find a way to discount the price of these tickets, I'd love to buy 2 more and bring 2 more friends along. So she said she'd see what she could do. So I get my assumption she got on the horn with some people, and to my sort of surprise, she came back to me and said, we are going to lower the price from $55,000 to $30,000. So in your account, you will have been refunded 25,000 points, and if you so choose, you can buy another package for 30,000 points. Man, that was awesome. So I got the 25,000 points back, and for those of you doing math in your head, I started with 71, spent 55, then I was at 16, got 25,000 back, now I'm at 46, or, something like that, and, 41, math, 41,000, and then I had the option of buying another package for 30, which I did. The second 2 tickets were going to be for my sister and her friend, and so now we're all set. I bought 4 tickets for a total of 60,000 Starwood points, and that gets me 4 tickets to see Phish, 4 tickets to the luxury suite. Now we're in business. People like to talk a lot about value in terms of like pennies per point, whether it's 1.1 or 2.0 or, whatever. And of course, I think people universally regard Starwood points as like being super valuable. But like in this instance, I can honestly say that I never thought about like the penny per point valuation here, because I just don't think that's what's most important. This is about how can me and these 3 other people that are my friends have the best experience possible, right? And if it just so happens that in order for us to do that, I have to get 0.9 cents per point, well, whatever, there's only so many opportunities that I may ever get to go see this band on this night at MSG, the most iconic venue in the world, in a box, right? So the value doesn't necessarily come into play. And for my money, I would have paid double based on the experience that I had. I don't know if you guys could tell that that's where I was going with this, but, suffice it to say, this was an incredible experience. So where are we? We've bought the tickets. Now we're at the venue, MSG. We enter through the South VIP concierge. I go to pick up my tickets. It takes 30 seconds. I show them my ID. I'm on my way. And this is the first cool part. When you're at MSG and you get your luxury box tickets, you're on a private elevator of sorts. And as you're going up, you're looking down at the other thousands of people trying to get into the venue that have just regular seats. And it's kind of cool. They're all down there. They're waiting to get through the metal detectors and whatnot. And you just sort of right up there, 60 seconds. So then we get up the escalator. We get on an elevator. We are going to floor number 5, which is the event level suites floor. And basically every step of the way, they're sort of checking your tickets, making sure that you've got the right to be there. But eventually, we go through this sort of long, winding corridor, and we're at our suite. So it was luxury suite, I believe, is number 6. I took a picture of it that I posted to the Pursuing Points Instagram if you're interested in checking it out. But we get to the suite. There's 2 suite attendants there. They were both very, very nice. As soon as we enter, they asked if they could take our coats, which we did. And then right away, you've got a private bathroom, which, frankly, as someone who's been to a lot of live events, both sports and concerts, the bathroom situation can sometimes be, not good. So to have your own private bathroom, that's a big deal. So we got the private bathroom. They took our coats, and then it's into the suite. And this is, to my understanding, these are all people who use the SPG Moments redemption. It's possible that some of them got there some other way, but by and large, that's where they came from. I believe there's about 8 people in the suite total. We had hot food. And I'm bad at sort of taking pictures and documenting some of these things, but basically, there was chicken wings, there was dumplings, there was empanadas, there was some cold stuff, there was fruit, there was salad, there was cookies, and of course there was free booze, so unlimited wine, beer, soft drinks. So you're in the suite, there's multiple TVs, very nice couches. There was a nice sort of what would remind you of like a kitchen table with 6 seats. So we sort of shared a meal with some of the other people who were in the suite with us. And it was really just an incredible experience. I would say we were in the suite before the show for about 30 to 45 minutes, just sort of hanging out, drinking and having some snacks. And then as the show was about to start, the attendant said, whenever you guys are ready, I'm happy to escort you to the seats. So we said, all right, let's go. So again, down the corridor, and at this point, the show hadn't started yet, but I'll come back to this corridor. So we go through the door that says, event level seating. And as soon as we walk out, when you walk out, you're basically on the floor. So you're looking at all the people who bought floor seats. And then you go up maybe 4 steps, and we were in the front row. So these seats, it's really hard for me to even explain it. And again, I've got some pictures on the Pursuing Points Instagram, but we're in the first row. We're 5 steps up from the floor, which means, what are we, 5 feet up? Very close. I would just, incredible seats. These were really, I would say, once-in-a-lifetime type seats. So she puts us there. 10 minutes later, the band comes on. If you've never been to a Phish show, maybe it's not for you, maybe it is, but I thought that it was incredible. They play a full set, and then there's like an intermission, then they play another full set. They play for hours, and it's really, really cool. During the show, the SPG, the suite attendant would come out and ask us if we wanted more drinks, to which we pretty much always said yes. So then she'd bring out more beer, wine, whatever we had asked for, which was awesome. And she did the same for everybody else that was in the suite. Basically there was a point during the show where I was just sort of looking around and I'm just seeing like thousands of people, this sold out Madison Square Garden crowd just having an incredible time. And I know that they're all having a great time. And I know that me and my 3 friends are all having a great time. And we're doing it in a way that only 10 other people in the whole venue are doing, right? This luxury suite, private bathroom, free booze, free food, and then these great seats. And I just thought to myself, like, this is the best part of the whole credit cards, points, and miles, because for me, it's not about, again, I've just said this, right? It's not about the valuation. It's not about, stretching my points necessarily. Like, it's not about pinching pennies for me or redeeming for like economy tickets. And I want to see if I can get 20 flights this year on my points. And don't get me wrong. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using your points in that way. Just for me, it's about the big redemptions, the stuff that I would never be able to do. Whether that's flying in first class on like an Emirates or a Singapore Suites, or getting a luxury suite at MSG, for me and 3 other people. People who know me, they'll laugh when I say this, but I look at everything. When I'm trying to convince a friend to go to an event, I'm always like, this is once in a lifetime. How many other times are you going to get to do this? And of course, the answer is that technically everything is once in a lifetime. But for me, like I very much am just a big fan of like, experiences over things, right? Like I would much rather spend $1,000 on a ticket to an event than like go to the mall and spend $1,000 with a bunch of stuff that like I know I don't need. And of course, I'm guilty of buying stuff like everybody else is. Like, I'm not judging anybody. But what I have learned from moving multiple times is that you don't know how much stuff you have until you start packing it up into boxes, and then you just can't believe the stuff that you've got. So like for me, I know that I don't need to buy physical things. Like I have the things that I need. I have a few wants, of course, but by and large, I want to be spending my money on events, and the credit card points that I use to get this redemption just led me to a place that I never would have otherwise had the opportunity of going to. And so as I'm sitting at this concert and I'm thinking about all this, right, like, I probably should have been focusing on the show, but, for like a good 30 minutes, I'm just sort of standing there and I'm just thinking about pursuing points in this podcast and the brand and like the things that I want to do with it, because I want the people who listen to this to have those same experiences, right? Like I want you to go cook with some world famous chef, or go sit in a box at MSG, or, go to the Super Bowl. Like I think it's so cool that we have the opportunity to do these things just by making good financial decisions and spending your money in specific cards at specific times, right? And just sort of playing this game. And then that payoff is just so incredible. I get excited just talking about it. Like I cannot wait to go back, whether it's at a concert or it's at a sporting event. Like, once you're in the box, like how can you go back, right? It's like now that's the bar has been set. So for me, I can't wait to get back there. And so that's why sort of my 2018 strategy is shifting, and I want to get more SPG points because right now I have basically none. I want to do less traveling, but I want to do it, higher, quality over quantity type thing. So basically, I guess sort of to wrap this up, this is probably the longest podcast we've ever done. the show was awesome. SPG is amazing. Using their website was super simple. The attendants at the suite were awesome. The customer service person I dealt with, Barbara, was awesome. Just the whole experience from top to bottom was really, really awesome. And I really just can't say enough about it, frankly. I would love for those who have had similar experiences, or maybe you redeemed for an SPG moment and had a bad experience, please reach out. I'd love to hear your story. Like I said before, you can email peter@pursuingpoints.com, or you can just use the contact form on the website. Send me your stuff. Let me know. But for me, this was literally once in a lifetime, the experience of a lifetime. If you have SPG points that you don't necessarily know what to do with, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you give this a shot. Like, you at least consider this as a redemption option, because the whole thing was a first-class experience. And with that, we're 35 minutes in. I was supposed to be in bed a couple hours ago. I couldn't really sleep as I was thinking about this, so now I'm obviously sitting here recording this. It's approaching midnight, and so like I said, I have big plans for this brand moving forward. I'm going to be putting out a lot more podcasts this year. That's not like a New Year's resolution type thing. That's just, like I said, being at this concert, and then one more thing. After the event, we're talking about it. We went to a bar just to sort of unwind, and we're talking about the fact that we got these tickets, and people are asking me, like, how did you get them? What do you mean you got them with credit card points? Like, what credit cards do you have? And, of course, I'm like, well, where do I begin? And it's just amazing to me how many people aren't taking advantage of this stuff. And so for me, that's like very motivating to know that, like, this content can get someone in those seats, right? Or if you're the person who wants to do 20 economy flights a year, this content can help you get there too, right? The way in which you spend your points or your money is not any of my concern. I'm just trying to give you the information that I have so you can do with it what you will. So super, super excited. Had a really awesome experience. Give SPG Moments a shot. Send me your stories, send me your questions, send me your comments. And with that, I will plan on seeing or talking to you folks next week for the 18th Pursuing Points podcast. Hopefully by then I'll have figured out what points and what miles I want to go after, and we'll maybe sign up for some cards live on the show. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your reviews. Thank you for your emails. And I'll see you next week.